Welcome to Tomorrow Unveiled. Today, we're diving headfirst into something that honestly still sounds a bit like science fiction, but it's becoming more real every day. We're talking about the quest for longer and, crucially, healthier lives. Here on Tomorrow Unveiled, our mission is really to dig into those breakthroughs that go beyond just tacking on years. We're focused on extending health span, that vital time where you're living in good health, feeling sharp mentally, staying physically capable. And to do that, we've been digging through a whole load of recent findings, research compiled by our dedicated research team. Our goal, to pull out the really important stuff, especially the insights that pop up again and again across different studies, basically giving you a shortcut to knowing what's actually happening. Okay, so let's unpack this week's biggest steps forward in longevity science, and maybe start with the core idea driving it all. Because what really stands out, and our research team saw this consistently, is this big shift in philosophy. It's really about quality now, not just quantity. Living well for longer, right? Not just sticking around.
Exactly. It's striking how clearly that paradigm shift comes through in the research findings. We're definitely moving beyond just asking how long and focusing much more on how well for longer. It's about, functional capacity, vitality. And this week's research, it really hammers that home. We're seeing focus on outcomes like preserving kidney function, restoring muscle, keeping the heart protected, boosting cell energy. It's a real shift.
That's a great way to put it. It's like, okay, you've got a car. You don't just want us to clock up 1,000,000 miles. You want the engine running smoothly, sure. But you also want the AC to work, the radio to sound good. You want the whole experience to be great for longer.
Precisely. A better ride, not just a longer one.
Okay, and speaking of upgrades, this is where things got really interesting this week. Our research team flagged this sort of multi-pronged attack happening against neurodegeneration, and specifically a move away from focusing only on amyloid plaques in Alzheimer's. So what's the big change there? What does it mean for brain health?
Well, it raises that important question, doesn't it? If Alzheimer's isn't just about amyloid, what else is going on? And what the research is showing now is, well, a much more holistic view, thinking of AD less as just a plaque problem and more like accelerated aging hitting the brain's core cellular machinery. It suggests we need to tackle aging itself in the brain, not just one symptom like plaques.
Right, and there was a really powerful example of this, wasn't there? The research team highlighted this computational strategy, basically using AI to find existing FDA-approved drugs that could, like, reverse the genetic chaos of Alzheimer's. And they found two. Letrozole for neurons, irinotecan for glial cells. Now, here's the kicker. They tested this combo in a really good mouse model for Alzheimer's, and it didn't just tweak gene expression or slow down brain shrinkage. It actually restored spatial learning and memory. I mean, that's huge.
It really is. Wow, that study is such a strong demonstration of AI's potential in drug discovery. Finding existing drugs, ones we already know something about, and combining them to hit a complex disease like Alzheimer's from multiple angles. It's data-driven medicine in action, and it could seriously speed things up, make development less risky.
Definitely. And the team also highlighted some other fascinating brain research looking at neuronal glycogen metabolism. Apparently, this connects strongly to telopathies, which includes Alzheimer's. So the basic idea is when this glycogen process gets messed up, a protein called tau kind of traps the glycogen, and that leads to toxic buildup.
Okay. So a metabolic problem causing protein issues.
Exactly. But here's the smart part. Researchers found that if they boosted the breakdown of this glycogen, it rerouted the cell's metabolism to actually produce powerful antioxidants, which then helped reduce the damage and even extended lifespan in the models they used. It's like clearing a nasty traffic jam in your brain's energy supply chain.
Right. And connecting that to the bigger picture, it really suggests that these fundamental metabolic functions, not just the big protein clumps we always talk about, are key to brain aging. It opens up totally new targets for therapies, perhaps, looking at the cell's basic housekeeping.
And there was another piece from Stanford University research highlighted by the team, looking at proteostasis protein balance and how ribosomal malfunction is a key driver of brain aging.
Ribosomes, the protein factories.
Yeah. They found that as we age, these ribosomes start to stall and bump into each other on the production line, which creates that double whammy you mentioned earlier. You don't get enough of the functional proteins you need, and you get a buildup of toxic misfolded junk proteins.
So it explains why multiple things might go wrong in the brain at once with age. It's a breakdown in the core production system.
Exactly. Foundational stuff. But, okay, let's shift gears from the brain to our cells themselves, because there's been some truly groundbreaking progress there, too, this past week in actually engineering our biology. First up, mitochondria.
Yes, this was really exciting. What the research team found is the first successful use of a very specific gene editing tool. It's called a DDCBE base editor to actually correct disease-causing mutations inside mitochondrial DNA, your primary human cells. And, mitochondrial problems are such a core part of aging, affecting everything from muscles to brain power. Fixing them directly has been a massive challenge.
Okay, so why is this specific tool such a big deal? We hear about CRISPR all the time.
Well, that's the thing. Standard CRISPR systems, they really struggled with mitochondrial DNA for various technical reasons, but this DDCBE tool, it makes very precise single-letter changes like fixing a typo in the genetic code without making those harsh double-strand breaks in the DNA that CRISPR usually does. Those breaks can be risky, and the research showed they used it successfully in cells taken from patients, and it fully restored mitochondrial function.
Wow. So like giving your cells powerhouses a tune-up by fixing tiny errors at the source.
Exactly. And if you think about the implications, I mean, this could be foundational. It opens the door to potentially treating hundreds of inherited mitochondrial diseases. And longer term, maybe even directly reversing some of the age-related decay in our mitochondria, bringing back some youthful energy to tissues. That's the hope.
Incredible potential. And sticking with cellular level stuff, the team also noted advances against sarcopenia, that's age-related muscle wasting. This involved using exosomes.
Ah, yes, the tiny vesicles, like little messages sent between cells.
Right. These specific ones came from human umbilical cord stem cells. And basically, they act like tiny cellular repair kits. A single injection in aged mice boosted their muscle building, improved performance.
And it's seen as potentially safer than using whole stem cells, right? Less risk of unwanted effects.
That's the idea. Cell-free therapy, potentially easier to control and maybe scale up. Very promising. Sometimes the biggest surprises come from places you really don't expect. And this week, our research team found some pretty potent anti-aging effects coming from some, unexpected compounds. First one sounds, honestly, right out of a sci-fi novel.
Huh. Well, this does raise an interesting question. Could a compound known for its psychoactive effects actually protect against aging, a geroprotector? Because the research team compiled some compelling experimental evidence suggesting psilocybin might act as just that, a potent anti-aging agent.
Okay, let's unpack that because it sounds wild. The findings were pretty consistent across different models, though, weren't
Well,
they?
just surprisingly robust, yeah.
In human fibroblast cells grown in the lab, it extended their lifespan quite dramatically, up to 57% in some cases. And then in aged mice, it didn't just help them live longer, it improved visible health signs, like their fur looked healthier.
And crucially, it seemed to hit known anti-aging pathways, preserving telomeres, reducing senescent zombie cells, boosting SIRC1 expression.
Right. Now, we absolutely have to add the caveat here. Tons more research is needed before this gets anywhere near human application for aging. And critically, figuring out how to separate any anti-aging effects from the psychoactive
Well,
effects.
that's absolutely key distinction.
So please, definitely do not try this at home. But as a research direction, fascinating.
Very much so. Unexpected avenues.
And then for something maybe a bit more immediately actionable. The research team also flagged a dietary intervention finding.
Yes, this was quite remarkable too in a different way. Basically, evidence suggesting that a simple, high-fiber diet can mimic many of the beneficial effects you see with caloric restriction. But, and this is the key part, without needing that drastic cut in overall food intake, which is, let's face it, really hard for most people to stick to.
Okay, that is a game changer. So how did it work? The findings showed mice on this high-fiber diet had gene expression patterns in their livers that looked very similar to mice on that strict calorie-cutting diet. And this led to better metabolic health overall.
Exactly. It suggests you might get many of the same molecular benefits just by adding more fiber.
That feels like a really practical takeaway for everyone. Much easier than trying to cut calories drastically.
A very accessible approach, potentially.
Now, none of these breakthroughs we've talked about, they don't just happen in isolation, do they? They're really powered by incredible leaps in technology, especially things like artificial intelligence and new diagnostic tools. It feels like we're getting these new, super-powered ways to actually understand and measure the aging process itself.
That's a great point. If we connect this to the bigger picture, AI is really shifting from just being a helpful tool on the side to being a central engine for discovery in this field. Our research team noted how it's speeding up everything, finding drug targets, repurposing old drugs for new uses, even generating new hypotheses from huge data sets. It's accelerating the whole pace.
Yeah, we saw that directly with the AI used in that Alzheimer's study you mentioned earlier, the one that found the drug combination. And other examples showed AI platforms identifying completely new targets for age-related diseases, helping big pharma companies find leads much, much faster than before.
Mm-hmm.
It really is like having this super smart detective that can sift through mountains of biological data and spot patterns, find clues about aging that humans might miss.
An indispensable tool now, really.
And then there are the advances in how we measure aging. Because finding treatments is one thing, but knowing if they work or even just understanding your own aging process, that's critical too.
Right. And this brings up a key question. How do you actually measure biological age accurately and meaningfully? What the research team highlighted this week was the development of organ-specific aging clocks.
Okay, that sounds like a massive leap forward, not just one single biological age number.
Exactly. These new models, based on analyzing proteins in the blood plasma, can predict the biological age of, I think it's 11 different organ systems.
11, wow. So you could see if your heart is aging faster than your kidneys, for example.
Precisely. And what's fascinating and maybe a bit sobering is that accelerated aging in a specific organ strongly predicts your risk of future diseases in that organ. So an old heart, according to the clock, means a higher risk of heart failure down the line.
Makes sense.
And interestingly, across the board, accelerated brain age was the strongest predictor of overall mortality and also, unsurprisingly, the risk of Alzheimer's.
So it's like getting this incredibly detailed, personalized health report card for each major part of your body, showing you where the vulnerabilities might be.
Kind of, yeah. A much more granular view of your aging process.
And alongside those organ clocks.
Well, complementing that, the team also noted the validation of certain DNA methylation clocks you might have heard of, names like Grimmage or Grimmage2. These have now been shown to be really reliable predictors of overall mortality risk across large studies, which is crucial for clinical trials, actually. They act as a sort of gold standard for measuring systemic whole-body aging. It helps compare results between different studies and interventions.
Right, so we need those reliable benchmarks. Okay, this seems like a good moment to pause for a second. If you're finding this insightful, and we hope you are, please take a moment to like this video. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to Tomorrow Unveiled, and definitely hit that notification bell so you never miss our updates on the future. And if you happen to be listening on a podcast service, maybe Apple Podcasts or Spotify, we would be incredibly grateful if you could leave us a rating and perhaps a quick review for Tomorrow Unveiled. It honestly really helps new listeners discover the conversation. Okay, so we've got all these incredible advances, AI speeding things up, new ways to measure aging, and it's easy to get really swept up in the excitement. But our research team also, quite rightly, emphasizes the hurdles, the practical stuff, the ethical questions. So what does it all mean for actually getting these interventions to people?
Yeah, that's the critical next step, isn't it? And it highlights what researchers often call the translational gap. You have these amazing discoveries happening in the lab preclinically, and the pace is just accelerating like crazy.
Yeah.
But getting those discoveries safely, effectively, and affordably into actual human clinical use, that's a whole different ballgame. It's long, it's difficult, it's full of challenges.
Absolutely. And the research team pointed out some key hurdles, right? Like, first off, safety. We're talking about intervening in fundamental biology here. What are the long-term consequences? What about off-target effects from gene editing, even precise edits like the mitochondrial ones?
Big unknown still.
Or managing the toxicity of repurposed drugs, those cancer drugs for Alzheimer's, for instance. They have side effects.
Right. Balancing efficacy and safety is paramount, especially when you're treating aging itself, potentially in healthy people over long periods.
Then there's the whole issue of accessibility and equity. These advanced therapies, gene editing, cell therapies, they're likely to be complex and probably very expensive, at least initially. Which raises that really difficult question. Who gets access? Could we end up with a longevity gap where only the wealthy can afford to significantly extend their health span?
That's a major societal concern. And it contrasts sharply with something like, say, recommending a high-fiber diet, which is potentially very scalable and accessible.
Exactly. And finally, there's regulation. How do our existing systems handle therapies that don't just treat a specific disease, but target aging itself? We probably need new frameworks.
Definitely. If we connect this to the bigger picture again, the whole field is really grappling with these issues. How do we ensure these incredibly powerful technologies benefit society broadly, ethically, and equitably? It's a constant balancing act between pushing the science forward and being responsible about its application.
A crucial discussion. So, looking ahead then, based on all this research from the past week, what does the future of longevity medicine start to look like? The convergence of these findings seems to paint a pretty clear picture, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It feels like it's going to be much more personalized, predictive, and probably involve multiple approaches at once.
I think that's right. And it really raises the question of how these discoveries will fundamentally change our approach to aging. We're moving away from one size fits all. The future seems to be about building these highly personalized risk profiles using tools like those organ-specific aging clocks we talked about, which then allows for incredibly targeted preventative strategies tailored specifically to your aging trajectory.
And the therapies themselves, likely becoming multimodal, you think? Like a cocktail approach.
Almost certainly. Addressing multiple hallmarks of aging at the same time. Because aging is so complex, right? It's unlikely that one single magic bullet will be enough.
Yeah.
So you can imagine maybe a combination therapy involving, say, something to boost metabolism, maybe a drug to clear out senescent cells, and something to enhance mitochondrial function, all working together.
Tailored to what that individual's aging clocks are showing.
Precisely. And connecting that to the ultimate goal. It's aiming for a true paradigm shift, moving away from treating diseases one by one after they appear, towards preventing or delaying a whole suite of age-related conditions simultaneously. The focus becomes maintaining function, strength, cognition, independence for much longer, making aging itself a modifiable risk factor.
Wow. Okay, so summing up, this week's Immortality update, as we're calling it, really underscores that the science of aging is hitting a new gear. It's a qualitative leap, isn't it? We're clearly moving beyond just observing and describing aging towards actively engineering solutions for a longer and, crucially, a healthier health span. And the emphasis, again and again in the research, is on adding life to years, not just years to life. It's about vitality, function, quality.
That's the core message, I think.
Yeah.
So as these breakthroughs keep coming, and they seem to be accelerating, here's the thought to leave you with. What would our world actually look like if aging itself becomes widely understood, routinely measured, and maybe even modified like other treatable conditions? How might that completely redefine the human experience, our careers, our relationships, our whole society? Something to ponder. We always love hearing what you think. Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on your favorite podcast app, please do leave a comment. Let us know your thoughts on the Immortality update and where you see the future of longevity science heading. Thank you so much for joining us on Tomorrow Unveiled. We look forward to exploring the future with you again next time.